A History of Hawaii, 3rd edition, published by the Curriculum Research and Development Group, part of the College of Education at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, is a comprehensive account of Hawaii's modern history that includes primary documents, political cartoons, stories and poems, graphs, a glossary, maps, timelines, and activities that foster critical thinking.
We want students to understand how the past impacts the present. So we decided to examine Hawaii's political, economic, social, and land history across 3 different time periods. This organizational structure allows teachers to concentrate on a single theme or to address several themes across several periods of time. We believe this approach helps students connect the past to the present. For example, we want them to understand that the overthrow of the monarchy in 1893 was not something that just happened one day in January, but that many factors led up to this event. And just as importantly, some of our most important and pressing political, social, economic, and land issues now are a direct result of that event, including the issue of sovereignty for Native Hawaiians. Even though we wrote a history of Hawaii using both a chronological and thematic approach, we know that history can never be divided up so neatly. Teachers and students must work together to weave it into a coherent whole.
The new edition includes greatly expanded coverage of Hawaiian cultural and political movements throughout the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries, from the unification of the islands under Kamehameha the Great to the Mālama Honua Worldwide Voyage, and includes a range of activities and opportunities for students to engage with history.
When we look at culture and education and the impact it has upon that history, it's very profound, but we don't think of it in those terms, particularly in Western academia. But for other peoples, indigenous as well as immigrant peoples, it is extremely important because it gives identity and self-being. It is not just a part of a cross-cultural process, but it allows the individuals, and particularly when we look at younger students, to understand where they came from, who they are, and in that, determining what they want to be.
For recent history, coverage goes up to 2016, highlighting current economic and social issues, including education, homelessness, and rail development, as well as sovereignty and the conflict over the 13-meter telescope.
That I tried to convey through the new edition really has to do with Native Hawaiians. Part of the reason why we wrote this book was to update the 2nd edition, but to also bring forth the Native people of this state and where they were at each point in Hawaii's history. And I felt that it was important at this time because of so many of the current things that have been going on in the Native Hawaiian community. So giving Native peoples the voice within their own history is very important for me. Some of the newer things that are in this current book is obviously going to be the pictures and the color. It was important to bring a lot of artifacts and maps and graphs and those kinds of visual aids to the book in order to help students better understand what they were reading. The skill sets, or how I chose the skill sets, really comes from my place as a teacher and knowing what I feel students who study history, the kinds of skills that they need in order to comprehend or understand any kind of history, whether it's our state history or whether it's our country's history or so on. So it was important to me to include those particular skill sets that students should have in order to study history. If you want to really understand what the place is about or what happened there, if you spend any time in a particular area, how did things come to be? Where were the Native peoples? How did their economy or their industry or their government, whatever it may be, how did that come about? You know, to truly understand what's going on with these people and even to understand where you come from. So for the students in this state, it's a great thing that they have to take their state's history because it's their home. And in order to understand what this whole place is about, this book, this new edition, is going to give that to them.
So this book is going to be really useful in helping people get some of the basic facts and learn to use critical thinking to form their own opinions based on the evidence and the facts. Although this was designed for the Modern History of Hawaii course, it's very accessible for the middle school students because of the primary documents, the illustrations, the critical thinking activities, and there are a lot of resources on the kingdom that teachers could draw on and use this in that course.
Each chapter contains a skill set activity, as well as several opportunities for students to think about the material in the context of their own lives through an activity titled Your Viewpoint.
In the History of Hawaii text, there are about 12 skill set activities, and what the skill set activities do is they focus on the disciplinary concepts and tools that are most relevant and important in social studies, often in the areas of geography, civics, history, and economics. And what they do is they provide students and teachers with a stimulus and then a very specific disciplinary concept and tool to focus their teaching and learning around. The History of Hawaii text is a great companion document for teachers who are using the C3 framework and the Common Core in their classrooms. And so how the C3 framework works is it has 4 dimensions of inquiry. It starts with generating questions, then using disciplinary concepts and tools to learn more about the subject area that you're studying, analyzing sources and forming conclusions, communicating those conclusions, and taking action. And within those skill sets, they're a great place for the teacher to develop a compelling question, provide students with the disciplinary concepts and tools related to that compelling question, giving them sources to analyze, from which the students can then form their own conclusions and take action. Common Core state standards are important for teaching and learning because I think they get at the spirit of what I think good education is all about, and that's about inquiry, and it's about students driving learning and looking at big ideas and asking questions about things that they care and wonder about, learning how to analyze sources, and for students to be able to form their own conclusions so that they can be actors in the world that are not only learning about things in textbooks for the sake of learning about them, but learning about them to apply them in the context of their own lives. And in my work at the University of Hawaii, I work with pre-service teachers, and one of the biggest challenges that they have is how do we find what those key core concepts are in social studies that we want to be teaching about, because those are the things that drive inquiry, not the itty-bitty little facts about history, but more of these big ideas. And what the skill set does in the History of Hawaii textbook is it isolates those key disciplinary concepts and tools or concepts for teachers so that they have this idea of what are those big ideas that I can be generating questions about for my students to inquire about, or what can I give them to students so students can generate their own questions about what they're interested in learning about. So it's really well done in terms of isolating those disciplinary concepts and tools and how they are situated within the history of Hawaii. So I think it's a great teaching resource.
So one thing that's really great about the History of Hawaii 3rd edition, the context and the structure, is that because I'm a social studies methods teacher, it nicely aligns to the C3. The C3 stands for the College, Career, and Civic Life Framework. There are these 4 disciplines that the C3 aligns, which is history, geography, civics, and economics. The History of Hawaii is also kind of broken up into sections that parallel these 4 disciplines. You know, in the one section, you'll see first the history, and then you'll see the land, and then you'll see the government, and those are all sections that directly align to one of these 4 disciplines. And so using the History of Hawaii 3rd edition, in my class anyway, just makes good sense.
The accompanying teacher's manual articulates the main idea and objectives for each chapter and provides chapter summaries, reproducible handouts, additional activities, and answers to questions.
For 50 years, the UH Manoa Curriculum Research and Development Group has been developing high-quality curriculum materials for Hawaii. It's part of our mandate to serve the educational community across the state, and I'm very proud to be a part of the great work that CRDG does every day for students and teachers across the islands. Nobody else can create curriculum appropriate for Hawaii if they're not part of Hawaii.
A History of Hawaii includes a total of 3 units. Each unit covers a time period from the 18th to the 21st centuries. The publication can be used as a textbook in the classroom or as a coffee table book in the family living room. Coverage of major events throughout Hawaii's modern history includes such topics as Western contact and the changes it brought, the rise of a market economy and the resulting immigration and plantation community, the depopulation of the Hawaiian people through disease and displacement from the land, and the recent era of statehood and the Hawaiian cultural renaissance. Coverage goes up to 2016, highlighting current economic and social issues. For more on a history of Hawaii, go to www.hawaii.edu/CRDG.